And hello there, and welcome to this evening's reading, which is the second in this series for the Bealtaine at Home book club. So check out all of the activities on the hashtag Bealtaine at Home page on Facebook. This is a book club curated by Mia Gallagher for the Bealtaine Festival. And you'll find a list of several books that Mia has recommended, as well as the two featured novels for the month. One is The Jewel by Neil Hegarty, and the other is The Years That Followed by myself. So I'm going to be reading throughout the month, just a series of very short extracts from the book. And I introduced you in the last reading to the two main characters. One is Calista, a woman living in the extreme west of Spain back in 1989 when the novel opens, and to a woman called Pilar, who's living in Madrid, also in 1989 when the novel opens. So I'm not going to give anything away about the story or what happens to these two women, and I'm just going to read you a very short extract from each of their stories from very near the beginning of the book. So the first one is Calista. She's in Extremadura and it's 1989. It's now late evening and the air is glowing. Calista doesn't know how long she's been sitting here, gazing out of the large circular window that captures the landscape below. This is her favourite time of day. She's always loved the way there is no dusk here, the way the day plunges bravely into night, with no wishy-washy hour of grainy light in between. The crickets continue their nightly racket, the smell of jasmine intensifies, and the great red ball of the sun disappears with predictable efficiency behind the horizon. Calista knows that if she keeps on looking, she can postpone the moment that awaits her in the room at the top of the stairs, a room now shaded by the dying embers of evening. From here, Calista can see the lights of the nearby villages, the silvery gleam of painted houses, the serried groves of olive trees. Occasionally, a motorbike stammers along the road below her, punctuating the quiet air. She watches the way night settles across the countryside, the way shapes shift and alter in the rapid darkness. Hills become folded predators. Farmers' shacks menace the crouching fields. It is possible to see for miles. In the distance, a butter-coloured moon spills stillness onto the darkness below. Here, at this vantage point, right at the top of the hill, no approach, no retreat goes unnoticed. Calista had chosen this site so that nothing could ever again take her by surprise. She leaves the landing now and makes her way up the final steps of the stairs. She switches on all the lamps, illuminating the vast upper story, an open-plan living room surrounded by glass on all four sides. The soothing sea-green shades bathe this room in a wavery light during the hot afternoons. Then it's like being underwater in a different element where life ripples along at a different pace. Sometimes when there is no air on either the upper or the lower terrace, Calista sits here for an hour or two, reading, dozing. She designed this house herself along with Fernando, a young local architect who was keen to embrace her ambitious plans. Above all, he shared Calista's enthusiasm for the work of Frank Lloyd Wright. This will be my tribute to him, Fernando had said, his eyes alight. He is my hero. The curving staircase, the light-filled rooms, the local stone, which made the house seem to emerge, fully formed, out of the landscape. All had been talking points in the neighbouring villages during the year of its construction. The mad, solitary Irish woman. Calista had heard the whispers, the rumours, the speculation that animated the nighttime conversations in José and Immaculada's bar. She'd been amused by all of it at the time. These days, once night falls, one of Callista's more constant routines is to watch with the darkness and to remember. Once Rosa asked her if being so visible made her feel vulnerable. "Don't you mind?" she'd said. "The way that people can see when you're alone." The question had surprised Callista. She'd never thought about that, not here. Here, her house was her sanctuary. Within it, life was safe, orderly, contained. That was why she had chosen the location in the first place. Besides, she was surrounded by so much rugged beauty. Callista has always wanted to believe that beauty is a protection in itself. She reaches into the cupboard and takes out a bottle of whiskey. She pours herself a generous measure and sits facing the fireplace. No water, no ice in the whiskey. Her father had taught her that a long time ago. He disdained such frivolous fashions, and Callista has followed his example. She allows herself to smoke only in the evenings, and she lights a cigarette now, drawing the smoke deeply, pleasurably into her lungs. Her head feels instantly light. She sips at the whiskey. Soon she'll feel tired enough to sleep. As she smokes, she lets her eyes drift towards the gallery of black and white portraits that make up the one startling wall of the chimney breast. They are as familiar to her as her own face. In a way, they are her own face. Her gaze alights on the central photograph, a man, young, dark-haired, handsome, but not in any conventional way. He has a strong, commanding face, clear, brilliant eyes. Callista has kept this portrait of Alexandros, no longer out of love, but out of the desire never to forget. On either side of this man, satellites orbiting the moon, are the bright faces of two young children. Smiling faces, unknowing faces, gazing off into the future. Tonight, Callista welcomes the unravelling of emotion that comes as she looks at him, at all of them. All that I've loved, she thinks. All that I have ever loved. She cannot put it off any longer. Callista sits back, nurses her glass, and allows herself, finally, to remember. And moving from Extremadura, moving eastwards towards Madrid, we catch up with Pilar in her apartment building, a building which she manages. And as this extract begins, she understands that something which has been making her uneasy, she can now put words to. And that is that two of her tenants from the top floor have not been seen anywhere in the last 3 or 4 days, something which is very unusual for this wealthy couple. Pilar is becoming more and more uneasy. Perhaps they have been suddenly taken ill. Perhaps they're suffering from food poisoning. So much food goes off so quickly in this July heat. Perhaps, and here Pilar begins to perspire, perhaps they already made an arrangement with her to look after things while they took a long weekend away and Pilar has somehow forgotten. Mr. Alexander and Madame Sandra have always travelled a lot, sometimes at a moment's notice. They've never failed to let her know when they will be back. Pilar is sure that she would never forget something as important as that. But she feels a chill flicker of doubt nonetheless. And just in case, she riffles through the pages of her notebook in a fever of anxiety. Nothing. She gets up from her chair and begins to pace. The golden rule is that Mr. Alexander and Madame Sandra must never be disturbed. That has always been clear. That is one of the reasons they live on the top floor. Pilar can feel her anxiety grow. This Tuesday is also the day for the window cleaners. Madame Sandra never forgets. She's very methodical in all of her domestic arrangements. She likes to be present when the men arrive, but she never stays. She returns as soon as they have finished, inspects the work and dismisses them when she's satisfied. Pilar glances at her watch. She will have to call Madame Sandra, if only to inquire whether there is to be any change to the day's arrangements. The window cleaners will be here in half an hour. It's most annoying that Juan Pablo is late. She goes towards her porteria, dials their number, and there is no response. She tries again, still no answer. Pilar replaces the receiver and sits for a moment, thoughtful. She has no need to consult her notebook to inform herself of what she must do in such extraordinary circumstances. She knows all of the residents' preferences by heart. She will try a third time to call them, and if there is still no response, then she will take the lift to the top floor. If the door is unanswered, she has permission to use her key and enter the apartment to supervise whatever work needs to be done. But this has never happened. Madame Sandra has never yet forgotten. Their phone rings out. 5 minutes later, Pilar is at the heavy oak door that leads to the top floor apartment. She hesitates before she knocks, pressing her ear to the warm wooden surface. She can hear nothing. She looks down the door's glass eye, imagining herself being seen from the inside, foreshortened, fish-eyed, rigid with anxiety. Then she knocks twice, waiting a couple of minutes each time for a response. One of them might be in the shower or still asleep, or they might be... When there's no answer, Pilar inserts her key into the lock and pushes the door open. As she does so, the smell assaults her. She cannot avoid it. The force of its onslaught makes her stagger. For a strange moment, Pilar remembers the mouse, caught in a trap in the corner of her bedroom downstairs. She'd forgotten that she'd set it, and the sweet, sickly scent of decay had driven her mad for days, until she found the small, weeping, blackening corpse, tracking it down by making her way around the apartment on her hands and knees. This here, she thinks suddenly, this must be some mouse. Mr. Alexander, she calls, standing with one foot just over the threshold, ready, always ready to retreat. Madame Sandra, she can hear the appeal in her voice. There is a stillness to the room that is unnerving, as though nothing has moved here for days. She can hear the low hum of the air conditioning, but despite its coolness, the air is thick with something that Pilar does not have the words to name. She feels her knees begin to tremble. Her palms are damp, the key sticky in her grasp. She now opens the door to the vast living room. Nothing. Frightened, compelled to move forward, yet dreading what she might be about to discover, Pilar puts her hand on the bedroom door. Señor, she calls. Señora. When she pushes her way in, the overpowering fetid air makes her gag. Her eyes water. The angry, insistent buzzing of a million glassy flies, their bodies fat, their wings blue-veined and translucent, tries to drive her back. Our territory, they say, swooping around her head in a cloud of rage. Ours. Pilar puts one hand to her mouth. She cannot be sick, not here. With the other, she tries to wave away the flies. But what she sees has made her throat close over. She is unable to speak. Okay, and we will leave it at that for this evening. And as part of the Bealtaine at Home book club, I will be doing these readings twice a week throughout the month of May. So join me again next Tuesday evening at 7:30 on this same YouTube channel. And in the meantime, be well, be safe, and stay home. All the best, and bye for now.